thank you everyone for coming to the Student Research Spotlight today. Today we have Samhitha from Sunnyvale, California. She did a research program, a future scholar research program with Kelvin Agassi from Judge Business School at University of Cambridge. So today we just want to get to know you a little more better. So why don't you start by a little bit of a self-introduction of yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me, first of all. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Samhitha. I'm an incoming senior at Homestead High School, and I've been interested in finance and entrepreneurship since joining FBLA in middle school, but I really dove deeper into the economies of developing countries, which is the generic topic of my research paper, after helping build 2 libraries in Malawi, Africa through my nonprofit. And that inspired me for my interest in the field to grow. And then this program presented itself as the perfect opportunity to look further into the investment side of things, as well as the social entrepreneurship side. And with advice from my mentors, I decided to write a research paper about attracting private investors to blended finance projects.
Oh yeah, that's great. Could you elaborate a little bit about your research area? What is blended finance projects, and what are they, and why you're interested in this?
Definitely. So I think to establish my research paper, it's important to define blended finance. So the proper definition would be the strategic use of development finance for the mobilization of additional finance towards sustainable development in developing countries. So that basically means bringing money towards sustainable development projects in these developing countries. And it attracts capital towards projects that contribute sustainable development while providing financial returns to the private investors that invest in them. So currently, blended finance is a really underutilized tool to supply resources to developing countries. And the amount of funding received from private investors specifically is very low. So right now, it's the responsibility of the blended finance project owners to seek capital from investors and be willing to modify their deals in order to cater to the private investors' interests while simultaneously generating enough funding to execute their end goal towards sustainable development. So what I did was I broke up my paper into 4 separate sections, each of which play a role in the generation of capital from private investors. And those sections are the portrayal of impact, the financial structure of the blended project deal, the risk mitigation, and the transparency in governance.
Well, yeah, that sounds like a very well-structured paper. And Dr. Agassi, as far as I know, even he's a professor at Judge Business School, but his specialization was very much on the social good economy and non-government organizations and so on. So a lot of social benefit company and social benefit business is actually what he's very interested in. So he sounds like a very good match for you.
Speaking more about Dr. Agassi as a mentor, I think that one thing that was really special about having him and Mr. Ubali as mentors was that they were really focused on providing very specific and individualized feedback to all students. So on top of the lectures and TA sessions, they would invite students to come into meetings, and with their existing expertise in the field, they were able to help me narrow down my research topic to what it is now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So the TA is definitely there to provide you some additional insight too. And the idea is the TAs are usually more closer to the age of the students. In fact, I believe your TA, Sunny, he's a MBA student going to a hedge fund or a investment banking, I believe. Yeah, so it must be interesting that he offers some of his insight into the overall program and your research project as well. So do you know what other students did during the program, or what other students focused on?
Yeah, so since our course was primarily focused on finance and entrepreneurship, which is a very broad field, we were given a lot of free rein in deciding our topics. So how the program was structured was that the first few weeks were primarily Dr. Agassi giving us the necessary background information and teaching us about different things like business models, advertising, research strategy, like collecting different pieces of like documents through Google Scholar. And then the second half was more individually tailored to our research. In the latter weeks, we were attending lectures and more specific feedback sessions tailored to our individual interests. And so for my group, most of people's interests aligned with investments. Some kind of brought in environmental aspects, including myself. And that was another place where peers really played a huge role in developing research topics, since I was lucky to have peers with such similar interests as myself.
Yeah. Peer learning is definitely very important and something definitely a highlight of this program too, because you work with students from many different places and background. Do all of your peers in the group are all from United States, or they're coming from different countries?
Yeah, so our group was special in the sense that most of us were from the same general region in California, and that was really interesting
Oh,
because
yeah.
we were able to share a lot in common. And I think that we were able, if we wanted to, we could even connect in person, and we were able to form really strong bonds.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So one last thing about your research topic, you mentioned that you during the program you kind of developed it with the professor and also just by talking with your the other students in the group. Do you have this idea when you apply to the program first, or do you kind of gradually build up to it before you write the research paper?
Yeah, so while I was applying to CCIR, I really did not have anything like this in mind. Once again, the whole thing that inspired me to look into blended finance was that library project that I did, which happened way after we had started this whole program. And it was mainly inspiration from Dr. Agassi, Mr. Ubali, and my peers that inspired me to go this route. What was really interesting was that Mr. Ubali actually had connections in the general field that I was interested in going into, which really expedited my narrowing topic down process. And I was able to come up with something really specific oddly quickly.
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting to know. So maybe tell us a little bit about your experience of the program. Maybe let's start from the application. So I was just looking at your internal interview score. You probably don't know this, but now the program is over now. I feel like it's very much safe to share. But you actually scored very high in our internal review metrics. We have a couple of different things that we basically look at every students, and this is before we pass on to the professor for a final admission review. But you know, our own indication and our own metrics are very important when a professor are considering taking the students. So you're a very established student, so I'll say a very high achieving student before you come to the CCIR. So I assume you must be very busy with many other activities and even other programs with your school too. So under much pressure, and especially you, I believe you applied in the fall 2022 round, so it's during the academic year. So how do you manage to balance between all this?
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Thank you for that internal insight. In terms of managing different things, what I generally do is break up these big daunting tasks like writing a research paper into the different semesters of the school year. So specifically for this, I try to budget most of my research paper writing into the spring semester of junior year. And yes, that was much later than the start of the actual program, but it ended up aligning with my schedule the best. Similarly, with other activities, it's important to align things with different school activities, extracurriculars, standardized testing like the SATs. And also, it's really important to communicate these things with mentors like Dr. Agassi, as well as peers, because these kinds of things that involve other people also take up their time. And it's really important to accommodate with other schedules.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So with so many opportunities out there, other programs and with all the activity you could participate in, what draws you to research, and why do you want to apply to CCIR and not somewhere else?
Yeah, so I applied to CCIR specifically because I was interested in making my own meaningful contribution to a field that I was passionate about. And in this case, it ended up being entrepreneurship and finance. And the process of the application was a little bit daunting because I saw all of these big names and faces all over the introductory packet, but it's also what persuaded me to apply in the first place, because I realized that I would be making such valuable connections here, and that's exactly what ended up happening.
Okay, great. Do you have any tips when it comes to application, or can you share us a little bit, just thinking about a few months ago when you were completing your application form or preparing the interview? Throughout the process, how was your admission experiences like during the academic admission process? And do you have any tips for any future applicants?
Certainly. I think that the process was more or less the same as other programs. It's a very um, cohesive process. And what I did was I tried to connect with other people that had done the program before. I find that networking with different people in order to get information that might be valuable to you is really useful, because at the end of the day, most people in the world and wherever you go ultimately want to help you. So whoever you ask, like, how can I get into CCIR? Do you have any recommendations for the application? They can really help, and I'm sure they'd be willing to.
Oh yeah, that's a really good, interesting idea. Maybe we should explore the ambassador program going forward, because I'm sure because we're constantly getting a lot of applicants basically seeking for a bit of a mentorship from the CCIR alumni as well. So yeah, that's a very good idea. Yeah, so maybe could you tell now the program is I'm sure it's over, but are you still in contact with Dr. Kevin Agalsi, or do you have any plans to even meet with him in the future, or anything like that? Anything he helped you with your research paper after the program now ends?
Yeah. So, as I stated before, I think that one of the biggest takeaways from this program was the connections I was able to make with relevant people in the field. And one of those connections was obviously Dr. Agassi. He was really persistent with connecting on LinkedIn, which I really appreciated, because now I have a means to reach out to him if I ever need anything in the future. If he ever needs to reach out to someone like me, he has my contact. I was also able to stay in contact with my peers through group chats, and as well as as well as Mr. Ubali. And I really appreciated that we were all able to stay in touch after the program and help each other publish our research and whatever the steps beyond that are.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good to know. So one last thing, I don't know if you have already contact, but you can also work with our academics team, who can work with you, review your draft, and recommend some very good conferences or journals for to publish. So are all part of the academic support that actually extends after the end of the program. So you can continue working with them, even if you feel like it's gonna take a while for you to publish your research, polish your research. But as long as your aim is going for publication, continue working with them, and they will be more than happy to help you to achieve the final goal. Yeah, connection is a very good point I think you made. Professor like Calvin Agassi, he's so connected, and he basically knows everyone, a lot of people in the field across the Atlantic. So if you just want to ask with him, sometimes he can refer the right person to you. And obviously, I'm sure when it comes to college application, he will also be happy to write you a very good and very well-rounded recommendation as well. Yeah. So I think that's most of my questions. But this is really a standard question for all of our spotlight researchers. Um, for applicants that are applying to CCIR, or they're thinking about CCIR, do you have any words you want to say to them, or anything maybe you want to say to yourself a few months ago when when you're thinking about applying to the program? Anything you don't know back then, now you feel like something you would like to share to them?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that, because I did want to
Hmm.
share that if I were to give future CCIR students one piece of advice, it would be not to be intimidated, despite how daunting writing a research paper may seem. Despite the high expectations that you may set for yourself or even others may set for you, the thing to remember first and foremost is that CCIR provides an entire network of people to support you. Like you just said, the academic research team, they even help after the paper is published, or they help work to get it published. There's so many opportunities in the CCIR team, and it's really important to take advantage of that. And from the professors to the current Cambridge students to the entire CCIR team, everyone involved in the program wants nothing but the best for you, and they want to help you. So with that said, it's crucial to reach out by all means, even if it means that the quality of your work will increase by 1%. And it's also a great way to network with some incredible people.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. And I think with that, that will be the end of our interview. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.